Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Play Arts Kai Variant War Machine figure, which is just a giant slap in the face for the people who bought the silver version of Iron Man, which released conveniently before this guy came out. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be some hard feelings for a lot of Play Arts Kai collectors, a lot of customers out there, which is one of the reasons I stopped buying their figures altogether. They're just not acting like a very good company. They're making weird decisions and raising prices and not releasing the best products. So that's why I took a big break from buying these things. And honestly, I'm not real happy that I came back, but mostly I'm doing it for you guys because I know you guys want to see the reviews, and I figure I can always sell the figures if I need to. So I'm getting the ones that I would have wanted anyway and hoping that they're good. And some of them are and some of them aren't. I said Wolverine was awesome. Deadpool was pretty cool. Cloud was pretty good. Now I have three new ones. I have this one, War Machine. I have the new tactical suit Batman, and I also have the variant Black Panther. And I got to tell you, those three figures together, not making me very happy. So there's a little bit to talk about for this guy. He's actually one of the better ones though, so that's pretty good. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands just about 27 centimeters, which makes him just about 10 and a half inches. I know it doesn't look like that on screen. That's just the angle of the camera. So this War Machine design, I think overall is pretty good. There are a few questionable choices, like having repulsors in the thighs right there. That's a little bit weird, but overall it's fine. I mean, there's no glaring issue. It looks like War Machine, so I can't complain about that. I don't think it's over designed or anything like that. It's fine aesthetically. It's a really good design. He's a little boxy up here, but that's kind of how the newer War Machines look anyway, so I think that's okay. Here's the thing. He does come with the Play Arts Kai display stand, which is a piece of garbage, but he doesn't have a whole lot of other accessories, which is a little bit weird for War Machine. So let's go ahead and go through that first, and then you'll just be able to see the paint as we go through the articulation. There's not a whole lot to comment on. It's just a few different shades of gray. Well, it's really just grayscale with a little bit of shading going on some of the darker bits, but there's not like a whole lot of intricate paintwork to talk about. So, accessories. We have the two fist hands that come on him in the package, and then we have two hands that are pretty much repulsor hands, but they don't go on really at an angle, so they're a little bit awkward, but they're not bad, and the repulsor paint job is there. I don't know about that white dot in the middle, but it's better than nothing, so that's okay. Then we have this weird thing, which I'll just show you in camera rather than having a photo, that pegs in. Let me show you back here. It pegs in right here. Why does it exist? I have no idea. It's only on the one side too. So you have this. That's it. It pegs in right here and serves no purpose. Okay? You get it on the one side only, and it doesn't do anything. So I don't understand why it's there. It would make sense if you had one on both sides to replace having no guns on there, but that's it. So I don't know what that's for. Alright, so moving on, we do have a couple of little mini gun type thingies for his forearms. We have one set for each side, and they're not painted the same. So each side gets one that has a different paint job than the other, even though they're almost the exact same sculpt. So that's a little bit weird, but they just peg in and rotate. I'll talk about that in the articulation section. And then we have two big guns, which can peg into his back in any of the four spots. They're all the weapons are interchangeable. So you can have the big ones at the bottom and then like kind of extend them up or around the side like a Gundam, or you can just put them at the top, and it's really up to you. Now, the problem with these guns, or at least what I have as far as problems go, is that they're just really goofy looking with these arms. The arms that are just almost essentially stacked ball hinges. They're functional, but they don't look like anything, and I would have much preferred a little bit more sculpt, because right now it just looks super weird to have a giant macaroni arm sticking off of his back. And you can do things to make it look better, but having just these giant like tubers coming off with guns, it's not the best design. But the guns themselves do look really nice. I like that they added some shading. We had the red lights kind of peeking through up here, not that they actually light up. But yeah, I mean, the guns themselves look fine. So we have two of those, one for either side. They're mirrors of each other. Actually, I guess they're not even mirrors, because if you rotate the arms around, they're identical. So yeah, we have two of those that are identical. And then we have two different other things. And these essentially you're going to just keep on his back. You can't really, on the top part of his back. That's why I think the big ones really belong on the bottom, because these don't really work on the bottom very well. I'm going to pop them off and show you. I haven't shown accessories like this in a long time, but since they actually have features, so to speak, their own articulation. I guess we'll just do it old school. No photos for these guys. Maybe I'll do photos too, though. So you have the peg holes. They're all the same, so you can swap them out however you want to. But then the guns are just like, this one's just like a pack of God, I can't think of what that's called. But like anti-air type missile type thingies. And it just has more of the hinges on it. So, I mean, if you like that, you like it. This one's less interchangeable because it clearly only goes one way. So not like the big ones where you could swap them back and forth, even though it doesn't matter. And then this one's basically the same thing, only in reverse. So different gun, of course, on the top. But in terms of the arm, they're clearly meant for either side specifically. But I mean, they're fine, but they just have these goofy ball peg or ball hinges everywhere. So I'm not a huge fan of the accessories on this guy. I think they could have definitely done a little bit better. Especially since none of the guns really have any style to them. It's just kind of like pure bulk, like no minigun type thing with multiple barrels, nothing fun, and no effect parts at all. So we have all these guns with no blasts. So it's kind of like, it just feels a little bit phoned in. It's not bad, but it definitely could be better. Okay, so I guess I should comment that the repulsor on the chest and on the thighs, that's actually translucent plastic, which looks really good, but then the ones on the hands are just painted, so they don't really match, and they could have at least used a little bit of paint in there to make it look like it was glowing, but they didn't. So again, just kind of phoned in. And then for the eyes, they do have a little bit of the paint on there to kind of match the hands, but it's directly in contrast to the chest. So it's just like, why PlayArts, why Square Enix do you make these decisions? Okay, and then I guess we can talk about these, even though they're not really an accessory. These guys rotate around. I guess they're like side guns or something. I don't know. You could point them like that, and maybe they're thrusters. Whatever you want to do with those, you can do with those. I don't think any panels open up. I didn't see it on any of the insert. So if I'm wrong, you can correct me. I missed some of the Iron Man ones back when I reviewed that, but I don't think any of his panels open up. If they do, I'll be really surprised. Okay, so as far as articulation goes, they did some things pretty well and some things not so much. The head's on a double ball peg, neck's on a double ball peg. Minimal range for the neck, but the head moves around pretty well. So I'm pretty pleased with that. On this kind of figure, it's often difficult to get the head to move around nicely because it's usually pretty bulky, but it's pretty good. I think that's all right. I like it. For the shoulders, they've gone back to this kind of a compound design, which I think they've used almost exactly before, but at the same time, I think it's kind of a variation on what they used to do. But we have a big ball peg that just pegs the entire arm into the torso, which is not unlike your SH Figure Arts or other import figures. But there's really nothing to fill in this gap. He's just got a giant gaping hole in his chest, and you can see right through it, actually. So that's really not a good design. Functionally, it's okay, but it's not that stiff. And then the hinge that's in the shoulder is pretty stiff. So it's kind of you're kind of fighting with it to pose it. And then if you want to bring the arm down, you have a giant gap up here, so you have to force it up and then bring the hinge down. And it's just a pain in the ass, and it's totally unnecessary. I don't know why they can't figure out basic articulation. It's very strange to me, but it does work. I mean, you can rotate it all the way around, and then the combination of the two allow him to raise his arm up horizontally. So it's okay ultimately, but it's not a very good design. You do have a bicep swivel right here, which is standard. Single jointed ball hinge elbow, which works well enough. It's a little bit better than 90, but that's about it. You can technically rotate the hinge around at the forearm, but it doesn't go very much. And then you can technically do it at the bicep as well, but it goes even less. With a ball hinge for the wrist, I am okay with this because the ball hinge itself is actually very thick. So you don't have any real ugly gapping issues or anything. And because it's a big ball hinge, you have really good range. So you can use the repulsor hands, but it's going to kind of offset the hand away from the wrist. So be aware of that. And then for these little guns I mentioned earlier, they just peg in and can rotate around, which looks pretty goofy in most cases. So you really just want to kind of stick them like that, and it'll make them look better. But just again, really kind of half-assed. For the upper torso, I thought it was a hinge and a ball peg, but I can't get the hinge to actually ratchet like some of the other ones. So it could just be a double ball peg in here. But either way, he can lean back a little bit. He can lean forward a little bit. Side to side is actually really good. there goes that arm. Those ball pegs are just so loose for the arms. So side to side is really good, rotation's really good, and then we definitely have another ball peg at the lower torso for more leaning and side to side and rotation. So his torso is really good. You don't get a whole lot of gapping, mostly because the chest is hollow, so the lower part goes all the way up in there. But yeah, the torso works really well on this guy. The floating crotch piece here is nice and snug, so that's pretty good. Then the hips work pretty much like your standard PlayArts Kai hips. But the thighs are so bulky. You really have to fight with them, but you still get good range, so that's okay. That's not a big deal. That's pretty good. And then bringing them I do wish they weren't so far apart, though. He's got a very wide, what's that called? Junk gap. No, that's not what it's called. He's got very wide hips, so it's not the best design. Going forward, again, his thighs are super bulky, but you can kind of force them up there, so if you really need to do that kind of pose, you can do it. It's going to mush this up a lot, but it does work, so that's okay. Thigh swivel is really good up there, yet they still give you one down here, which is just terrible. I don't know why they started doing this double thigh swivel and just putting a swivel, like a cut right in the middle of the thigh on all these figures. On this guy, it's very well hidden, but on most figures, it's not. And you don't need it because, look, you already have a really good thigh swivel built in. They just make weird decisions. Double jointed knee, which is super duper ugly, but since it is a War Machine suit, you can kind of excuse the mechanical look to it, so I guess that's alright. It's functional, so that's alright. For the ankles, you get a bigger ball hinge than standard, which works really nicely. You can bring the foot pretty far forward, pretty far back. You have a pretty goofy looking toe hinge, but it is there. And then, of course, you can rotate it around a little bit for an ankle rocker. But wait, the shin armor that comes down is very, very firm, so you can't really rotate it around at all for an ankle rocker. And the peg goes in almost vertically, so that doesn't work either. Then you also have these guys, which are holes in the bottom of the feet and nothing to peg into them. So there's that. So yeah, it's fine, but I don't think at the price point and the scale that fine is good enough. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's okay. I don't hate the figure by any means, but I think at the price point, we really should be getting better quality out of these guys. I don't understand it, especially since they do sell repaints of things on a regular basis. They should be making enough income to put a little bit more R&D, a little bit more care and effort into these. They're fine, but that's really just about it. So I recommend it with extreme caution. Make sure you watch this review, which if you're here, you already have, and you know what you're buying, so you can make your decision with more information than you had before. So that's how I'm going to leave it, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I have new videos up every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. And in the meantime, keep collecting.